You're listening to Choose FI Radio. The blueprint for financial independence lives here. If you're looking to unlock the secrets to financial independence and early retirement, you're in the right place. Stay tuned and join a community of like-minded people who are getting off the hamster wheel and taking control of their lives in the pursuit of financial independence. Choose FI, your home for financial independence online.
All right, everyone. Very excited about today's episode. I think we told you guys back early in the year that we're going to be moving to a slightly different format for some of our shows. We're actually going to start doing case studies. And the idea being, up to this point, for 3 or so years, we have documented the many different ways that people have reached financial independence and the unique challenges and obstacles that they've overcome to get there. And as the tent grew, as more and more people joined us for this ride, and we increasingly realized this is a movement, what's implied there is that there are more and more people that are getting started and are on their path. And so while what you did is great, does it work now? What should I do? What are people doing right now? Seem to hold increasing levels of value. And that is actually the key for these case studies. We're going back, we're finding people, maybe they have a side hustle, maybe they're thinking about starting a side hustle, maybe they're clawing their way out of debt. At various points throughout the process, coming on the show, this is their day zero. And we're going to map out, all right, from here, how do you get there? What does it look like? So today we're talking with Kashia Palmer, and to help me with this, I have my co-host Brad here with me today. How you doing, buddy?
Hey, Jonathan, I am doing quite well. Yeah, I've been really looking forward to this, right? We've talked about doing these case studies for quite some time. And to your point, it's great to chat with people who have made it, but it's usually 5, 10, 20 years after the fact, and they're just trying to remember details. Whereas most people in our audience, they're living this right now. They're making decisions right now. They might be mired in debt. They might be just at that point of breaking $0 net worth. And they want to know what to do now. And like we've always talked about, the world revolves around stories. And it'll be cool to chat with Kashia to talk through where they are and what decisions they can make going forward to get to a point of financial independence. So with that, Kashia, welcome to Choose FI.
Hi. I'm so excited about this.
Awesome. Yeah, we're excited you're joining us. It's going to be a lot of fun. I think probably before we actually get to your financial numbers and where you are now, I'd love to take a step back and kind of talk about how we get here and what financial choices you've made up to this particular point in time. I know that your husband works in sales and you have a commission sales job and you have a side hustle as well. So at what point were you starting to build wealth for your future self?
Oh my goodness. I would honestly say it was just right after getting out of debt were we able to start worrying about our future and what we were doing. And that was probably just a few months ago, to be honest.
Very cool. Congratulations, by the way. Let's talk about
that's amazing.
Let's talk about your debt story here. I'll have a little celebration in the background here with student loans, home mortgage. Like when we say debt, what are you talking about?
Okay, so luckily my husband's pretty good with student loans. We had scholarships, all that kind of stuff. But we decided to adopt, and adoption is not cheap whatsoever. And we could not come up with $40,000, just graduated from college. So debt came into play just so we could start our families. And we're slowly trying to chip away at that. And then it's just what they say about credit cards, they suck you in where you're like, oh, I can pay that off later. Oh, just put it on this card, and it just kind of started to snowball. Then we started to chip away at it and got a little bit of progress. And then we were ready to adopt again. And it was a lot cheaper than our first one, but still it was not like just pocket change. And so it brought us into a little bit more debt. And then about 2 months after we got into that debt with our second adoption, we're like, hey, we're done. These are they just hold you down. It's like a weight that is just sitting on you and you can't do anything or nothing. And so we decided just to completely get rid of all that debt and try our best to get on top of it and get where we wanted to be if adoption wasn't so expensive.
Yeah, that's amazing. How many years was that process of accumulating the debt? And if you have any sense of like roughly, how much credit card debt you were in. And then I guess the other side, the hopeful side is how quickly were you able to pay that debt off?
Okay, so it took us about 3 years to accumulate all of that debt. And we were probably, my husband knows the exact number. I think we were almost $20,000 into debt by the time we were like, okay, we need to get this under control. And it took us exactly 1 year to the date to pay it all off while still being able to live and be good.
Wow, that's amazing. So what type of changes did you have to make? I mean, a year, that's incredible to pay off that type of debt. At the start of that point, when you and your husband decided, okay, we've got to pay this off, what changes did you make in order to free up that money to pay off the debt?
So we were so OCD with it all. We took everything to an Excel sheet and put penny for penny where it was all going, what was happening,
Wow.
all of our bills, not just like electric bills, rent, it was all of those bills. And then it was also our debt that we had to do. And then any extra things that we didn't need, which me and my husband we don't do a lot of like subscriptions or anything, but anything extra we just took out completely. And every single penny we made went to debt. First went to our bills and then everything went to debt. We kept nothing for ourselves and just chipped away at it as fast as we could.
Yeah, this is fantastic. And so, I'm looking, we'll get to a budget breakdown in just a few minutes here, but it looks like on the expense side of things, you've done a lot right here. I'm looking at this and these look like very reasonable line items in your budget. I'm curious, to be able to pay off, was it close to $40,000 in a little bit over a year? Was that accurate?
So we had a little bit saved for the adoption. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, so between the adoption and the credit card debt, it sounded like the debt that you were dealing with over the interim was close to $40,000. Was that accurate or more or
No, it
less?
was about 20. So we were able to raise $20,000
Okay.
for the adoption. And then the other 20 we had to pull out for debt. I would say it was a little bit above 20.
So about $20,000 over the last year, and paying that off, was that reeling in the extra expenses or increasing income, a little bit of both? How did you go about tackling that once you had it on the Excel sheet?
Yes, a little bit of both. So the first year of my daughter's life, I did work a little bit. I did eyelash extensions, and it's not that much money. Really just paid for our groceries. That's about it. And then after that, I was able to get a little bit more income coming in. And with our money, I was so scared to start a budget. I was so scared to see what was coming in and what was going out. And then after our second one, that's when we were like, okay, I am making enough extra now that I need to kind of get a hold of it, keep track of it all, and see where all of it can go and where we can, save a little bit for groceries or for gas and all that kind of stuff.
So I'm going to list some numbers off of the budget that you handed us ahead of the call, just so we can kind of walk through a little bit of it. But first of all, as I look at the big three, Brad, which when we did our 5-1-1, the big three was housing, transportation, and food, right? So for housing, it looks like your rent or mortgage, $800. Is that accurate?
Yes.
Okay. And transportation is $500, and that includes regular Uber, public transit fees, car maintenance. Do you have a car payment?
Not anymore, no.
Awesome. And then your grocery budget. Now, this is the part I was really impressed by. Down here, you have $350 for groceries, and you have a family of 4. You have 2 kids.
Wow.
Tell us a little bit more about that grocery line item.
Luckily, I'm a vegetarian, and so meat is already very sparse in our home. So we didn't buy a lot of meat because that's where a lot of your budget goes to. So we'd probably buy meat like once a month, and I would just have to get it to be able to last the whole month. And then everything else, like I just needed to use spaghetti. That's very cheap and very, luckily my husband and my girls, well, our littlest girl just started eating solids in the last 4 months. So she still ate baby food, but it was just get what's cheap and repeat meals and no extras. I'm not a big eat outer. My husband is, so that was for him. Definitely hard to let go of those things, but it was literally like the nitty gritty, not name brand, being able to just eat at home. If we were out, I would make our food beforehand and we would bring it with us. Yeah.
This is amazing. I know you said when you guys decided to get serious that you cut everything. And it sounds, I mean, a $350 food and grocery bill, that's remarkable. I'm curious, how did you and your husband talk about this? You know, you said he was a big fan of eating out. How did you guys come to some reconciliation on, hey, what should we spend? What are our priorities? What are our values? That's a word we use at Choosify. Like, what do we value in terms of spending?
So honestly, my husband wanted to start this budget, oh my gosh, years ago. But it was me that I was like, I love to shop and I love just to do whatever I want to do. And then it got to a point where we were like, can we pay our bills this month? We were a little bit nervous. And that's when it hit me, because I'm also the type to not ask for help. Like, we need to figure it out ourselves. We got in this hole, whatever it may be. So when we went through like tracking it that month where everything was a little bit scary, that's when I realized, okay, I probably didn't need that shirt, or I didn't need this. And my husband, he is so reasonable, where he's like, okay, if you're giving up shopping, I am more than happy to give up my fast food. And for me, seeing that we couldn't pay our bills because we weren't putting our bills first, we weren't thinking like, okay, we have X amount in the account. Oh, but A, B, and C haven't been paid yet. I was thinking, oh, I can go get a new shirt. There's money in the account, you know? And so it helped him to see like I was on board. I was sacrificing things that I loved. And so he could too. He was like, okay, I'll cut out my Maverick gas station runs to get my Diet Mountain Dew. I'm fine with that.
Nice. That's cool. Jonathan, the phrase putting our bills first, that's a really cool concept, right? Because I think a lot of people, they don't, you know, they just, like you're saying,
Yes.
oh, there's money left over. But because you hadn't put it on paper or on Excel, as it may be, right?
Yes.
Like, and you said before, like how scary that was.
Mm-hmm.
And it is. I mean, that is frightening for most people who they're just they're going through life. And maybe they know in the back of their mind, the financial situation isn't that great.
Yeah.
And they don't want to see it on paper. But man, that first time, like, I mean, did you guys do that together?
Yes. So I'm not computer savvy, like at all. My husband set all of this up for me before he left for work because I know nothing. So we were in bed one night and I was like, you do it, set up our Excel sheet. You know how I like can vision things. So make sure it looks the way I can understand it. So he did. And he literally took his account. We're very good. We only have one account. We don't do separate accounts for things. And he just went down and I would ask me, hey, what's this? And I would tell him, oh, hey, what's this? Why is this in there? Okay, we're going to take away this subscription. And then he would just put it in our Excel sheet of what it was, when the due date was, how much it was. And then if it was a debt, how much is left over to pay off.
Very cool. All right, so I'm looking through your line items, and there's a lot of stuff here that looks very optimized. I am noticing, though, I see your cell phone bill is $160 a month for you and your husband. Is that accurate?
Yeah, it is.
Who are you using? Does it come with a Cadillac?
I was going to say, this is one we should have cut back on, is Verizon, the most expensive one out there.
Oh, my goodness. Can you hear me now? Now! No, I'm just kidding. I remember when I used to pay $160 a month for a cell phone. Oh, my goodness. All right, well, Brad, I mean, come on, let's drop a knowledge bomb here. I mean, what are you doing and how much are you and your wife paying for your cell phone service, Brad?
Yeah, Kashia, this is one area where we can certainly help you save some money. Obviously, it looks like you're pretty optimized on the big three. But yeah, I mean, I spend, I think it's $20 a month. So I've used Republic Wireless. Yeah, it's amazing. So basically how it works, and what I always say when it comes to financial independence is I don't feel like I'm depriving myself at all. I'm just making very intentional decisions. So what I've said on this podcast numerous times is basically I don't have unlimited data on my cell phone. But realistically, I am home 95% of the time. And the only things that take up data are basically downloading podcasts and watching videos or going on Facebook, right? And like watching videos on Facebook. Everything else is like really not that data intensive. So I've used Republic Wireless for, I think, about 10 years now. And yeah, I mean, it's cost me somewhere between like, I don't know, $12 and $20 a month, depending on the plan that I had. And that's,
oh my goodness.
It's crazy. So, you know, you multiply that by 2. And even at the high end of that, for me and my wife, Laura, it's $40 a month. And
Wow.
honestly, we feel like we have, I've got a regular cell phone. I get, unlimited talk, text, and Wi-Fi. And
wow.
I have a gigabyte of data. So like I said, it just requires that tiny little bit of intention that, okay, I'm not watching videos when I'm not on Wi-Fi, right?
Yes.
When I'm home, I can do whatever I want. But when I'm out, I just know to not download podcasts or watch videos. So for me, to save $100+ a month, in your budget, you
Kashia, every year that you stick with your plan, you're paying for 10 of Brad's years. So congratulations.
Like knife wound right there.
No. No, that's the cool thing, right? Like, it's just like when you looked at your budget the first time, like, you can't beat yourself up about things that you've done in the past. Like, that is such an important part of this process, right? Is like, you have already made so many incredible changes to your budget to pay off that debt, to move forward and potentially reach financial independence. Like, I've done stupid stuff in the past, and like, I still do stupid stuff, frankly, like, but you can't beat yourself up about that. You just have to look at your budget. You have to look at your life and say, what do I value? And is that worth it? Like, there are people out there who say, okay, I want to spend the $160 a month because I need to watch videos for 5 hours a day. Okay, that's great. Do that. That makes sense. But, so you and your husband need to determine that. But there are options out there. And yeah, I mean, that's kind of my little thing here, but that's a huge way to save, certainly. And yeah, I love Republic Wireless.
And this probably will not surprise our audience, but Republic Wireless, I mean, it's a great program. It's a great service. They're an affiliate of ours. If you use our affiliate link, you will actually get 2 months of service for free. For more information, I mean, it's a no-brainer. Go to choosefi.com/republic for more information. So, Kashia, you're at ground zero.
Yes.
You've paid off all the debt, and you're working towards getting to this point where working is optional. We talked about your expenses, which I just tabulated. I created my own Excel sheet just for this purpose here, and I came up with the fact that probably like your core expenses are going to fall. Now, I just calculated based on what you gave me, it's at least $2,000. I wouldn't be surprised if it's somewhere between 2 and 3. There's probably some variety in there, but I think that's probably the window. You got about $2,000 to $3,000 a month of expenses. Let's talk about the income side of the equation. I know you have a side hustle as well, and your husband's in sales. What is y'all's like base income, and then kind of what's the range there?
Mine's a little bit harder since it's kind of all entrepreneurial. I don't know how to.
Right. So you have a social media based business?
Yes. So I have a social media based business. So it just kind of varies each month with it. And then my husband, where he's on sales, we start out with the base salary of $50,000, and then everything's dependent on his sales. So his commission and how well he's doing. So we work our butts off and we try our best to get above 100K so we can be able to do the things that we want to in life and have fun.
Awesome. All right. So we got a base of 50, and then it flirts with 100, occasionally goes up, but there's variety there. You're not locking in. It's just, if you can crush it, great.
Yes.
And one quick question, with your husband's job, do you get health insurance included?
Yes. Luckily we do. We have not had it before, but yes.
Nice. Okay. Because obviously that's a huge line item in the budget. So if that's covered, that's enormous.
Nice. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to park and I'll get your buy-in here. Since we can't bank our FI plan around when times are good, it's just kind of average. Would you think that probably that 80 to 90,000 is kind of like a good target mark for where you guys think, even conservatively you'll hit each year? Is that close?
For me, yes. My husband would say 1 to 120.
1 to 120. He's like, you don't know what I've been up to this year. We got this. All right.
I know. That's why I'm like, for me, I always lowball it because I'm not there with him, and so
let's park it at 100.
He works his butts off.
Let's park it at 100 as a compromise. We'll just meet you guys in the middle, and we're going to take $100,000. So first of all, let's talk about your actual tax planning. Do you and your husband take advantage of an employer match? Do you take advantage of your 401k at your husband's business? Are you taking advantage of those vehicles?
Yes.
All right, cool. And are you maxing it out yet?
We are trying our best to be able to.
Yeah, I guess you just finished paying off the debt, and so now you're kind of moving into this next lane. So great. So Brad, I'm sure you're ahead of me on the data here, but if we're starting with 100,000, 401ks are tax deferred, so that's immediately coming off our adjusted gross income. So what is that leaving us with, Brad?
Yeah, so if they're maxing it out, let's say they're putting in 19,500, and like you said, that might not be today, but it's certainly aspirational. And, the beautiful thing about that is that, sorry, Jonathan, you like the aspirational?
I was just going to say, that would be a strong recommendation from your friends here at Choose FI is max out that 401k.
I saw you gesticulating wildly over there. So yeah, let's assume you're putting that in. So the beautiful thing is that then reduces your tax liability this year. So you're saving money and you're saving tax. So if we're assuming 100,000 of income minus 19,500 put into a 401k, you're at 80,500 of taxable income.
Yes.
And then, okay, so that's a great starting point.
Yeah, so let's just go back to that. So what there's a few things to keep in mind, but generally what I was thinking is, going back to our free money calculation, Brad, and I don't have it exactly pulled up, but married, filing jointly with 2 kids, your first, Brad, maybe, I know you're not going to exactly
70 something.
Yeah, it's close to $70,000. You're getting almost tax-free at the federal level, not necessarily at the state. So what state are you guys in?
Utah.
They are also a tax haven, aren't they, Brad? Am I wrong there? We'll double check that and come back to that. I'm not sure off the top of my mind. We'll look at that. But, there's some implications about at the state level. But regardless, once you pass that amount now, because you guys are starting out at 100K, Brad, what is the marginal tax bracket that they're falling in with 100K income if they don't max out their 401K?
All right, Jonathan. So married filing joint for 2020 federal income tax brackets, let's assume no deductions, right? And that's kind of what we're going to show here, which will be interesting. But with no deductions, the marginal tax rate is 22%.
Okay.
But obviously, we know there are standard deduction and 401k, which we're going to walk through here.
Right. So then if you're saying, all right, well, we want to avoid a 22% marginal tax bracket if possible and get that money working for us sooner, we max out that 401k, and that 19,500 is now not subject on the front end to that 22% marginal tax, which means that you got basically an extra $5,000 working for you if you make this one choice. So not doing this now is saying, the government can have the 5K. We don't need it. We'll be fine. We'll figure it out somewhere else. Said no one ever, right? So clearly the first step here, as soon as you get your debt paid off, and some people might even start ahead of time, especially with the employer match, but certainly once your debt is paid off with this renewed focus, we're going to go in and we are going to get that 401k taken care of and take advantage of any additional benefits that were offered.
So yeah, just kind of finishing out that calculation, which in real life here, right? So we're saying 100K, you're putting 19,500 into 401k, and then you get even just the bare minimum standard deduction, which for married filing joint is 24,800. So your taxable income is all the way down to 55,700. And like we said before, you have 2 kids, and Jonathan talked about free money. So what that means is because of all these deductions and because of the child tax credit that you get, which is newly increased, I think it's $2,000 per child. So that's a $4,000 child tax credit that you're going to get. So we believe that your federal income tax liability, based on what Jonathan said of free money, right, of somewhere around in the 70,000s, your federal income tax liability is going to be almost zero, which is remarkable. So as long as you max out that 401k, which is obviously savings, right? Like this is how you get to financial independence. You save money, right? And you've been, you and your husband have been doing this incredibly, obviously, in this debt payoff. But now we're looking at the wealth building side. Right. So not only are you saving 19,500 each year in a 401k, but you're paying just about $0 in federal tax, which is just amazing.
So we're going to go farther with this. You can take notes now, Kashia, or we can just give you the episode in post and you can go back then and say, Ryan, listen to this. We're doing this. So going with what Brad said. So just for simplicity, back of the envelope. I know there's people in our audience that hate when we overuse back of the envelope. I'm sorry, pull an envelope out, make it reality. Anyways, when you start out with $100,000 and then you max out that 401k, takes you down to $80,500. We just said at a federal level that at this point, there's almost zero tax liability involved in your particular case. So you have $80,500. We're ignoring state because I didn't do the research on Utah ahead of time for this example. So now we have a real simple equation. What we make minus what we spend. We looked at your core expenses and we said, conservatively, assuming that you didn't give us all the expenses, and sometimes, things get more expensive. Let's throw an extra $1,000 on top of what I calculated on Excel. That came to $3,000 a month, putting us at $36,000 a year. Let's subtract that from the $80,500 that we had roughly, Brad, leaving us with a difference of.
Yeah, so that leaves us with $44,500 of just a additional money that's lying around potentially to be saved. And like Jonathan said, the crucial part is you have this bare bones budget, this amazing budget that you and your husband have worked on. And we came up with about $2,000, but we've already even just increased it 50% all the way up to $3,000, right? Just to be ultra conservative. And then amongst the money that you're earning, you're saving $19,500. And then there's this additional $44,500 that can be saved. And, obviously, like we said, we're not talking about state tax, but it's not going to be considerable. There are some payroll taxes. So, we can probably, again, just for the sake of being conservative, we can say there's going to be, I don't know, let's say 8,000 or 9,000 of additional just random taxes. So let's always err on the side of being a little bit conservative. So I'm going to say 9,000. So we've got 44,500 minus that 9,000 gets us to 35,500. Jonathan, I think that to me feels like a better number. So we're at about $3,000 a month.
All right. So yeah, you could have said the strict math based on what we rolled out was you're going to have 44,500 left over plus what you're maxing out with your 401k. But since there's variables that we don't know and aren't accounting for, let's shave that down to, what was the number? Minus 9,000?
I think $36,000 is a really good way to start. So that's $3,000 a month.
Cool. So, but now let's add back in that 401k. So let's assume that you're going to take the super extreme path where every extra dollar is not going toward inflating your lifestyle. You can come back to that. This is not binary. It's not do this or don't do anything. It's anything in between. But let's just, for the sake of fun numbers, let's say that you were to go super hardcore, super extreme, at least for the next year or two. So Brad just said you're maxing out your 401k plus you have an extra $36,000 a year, post-tax dollars that you can use for your investing. Let's add the two together for our investing purposes here. So we're going to have $36,000 plus $19,500. This is the amount of money that we have available to invest to reach financial independence each and every year, bringing us, Brad, to $55,500. Are we on the same page?
Yeah. That's an amazing number.
Now, your income is not steady month to month. There's great months and there's slower months, but for the purpose of this example, let's assume that it's coming in as a drip paycheck, and we're going to divide that $55,500 by 12, meaning you have $4,625 to invest each month. Now, you're already doing some of that in your 401k. For the purposes now moving forward, we're just going to talk about it together as one kind of lump animal. In reality, you would do whatever you can do through your employer. You as an entrepreneur would probably look into setting up some sort of retirement account for yourself as well. And then with what's left after that, but for the sake of this conversation, we're not going to go there. We're just going to talk about investing this lump sum, $4,625 a month to reach financial independence. The only thing that we haven't included up to this point is your current net worth. Do you guys have any significant savings at this point, or are you more or less getting back to like, all right, we're out of debt, now we're starting from scratch?
Okay. We have a significant amount of savings, but we're in the process of buying a home. So that savings will be going towards a home.
So we're going to call it zero. By the way, congratulations. I don't want to bypass that. That's huge. So I guess for the purpose of the example, we are going to consider you having a net worth of zero. So Brad, I am using a very simple retirement projection calculator. We actually have said calculator on our website. You can find it at apps.choosefi.com. And this is the calculator we're using for all of these case studies. You can check it out there if you want more information. So, Kashia, let's do just a simple projection here. We're going to start with where you are now. So what is your current age? Sorry, my mom told me never to ask that question, but I'm doing it anyways. What's your current age?
Good. 32.
32. All right. And we are going to then, Brad, I guess the other thing we could do is we could say, how much would you need to be able to replace your current life expenses, right? And that's a pretty simple calculation. If your life costs $3,000 a month, Brad, for Kashia, how would she calculate her FI number based on $3,000 a month of expenses?
Yeah. So the way that we look at this to determine how much money you need to get to that point of financial independence is you take your annual expenses. So obviously we started with a monthly expense. So we just multiply that by 12. So just really simply, we're going to say that $3,000, which is already an inflated amount, but let's even assume you're going to have a mortgage, your housing costs are going to go up a little bit. So we take that 3,000 multiplied by 12, which gets us to $36,000 a year. And then we multiply that by 25. So we call that the 4% rule of thumb. Okay. So the way that this works is when you have a pot of money, let's say $1 million, you can somewhat reliably pull out 4% of that every year, and this is adjusted for inflation, so it's not just stuck at that amount forever for the next 70 years. Hopefully we're all going to live to 100, right? So you're talking a 70-year timeline, right? So adjusted for inflation is important, and you can pull that 4% out, and if that can pay for all of your annual expenses, then you don't need to make another dollar as long as you live, right? That's the beautiful thing, right? Isn't that remarkable? So this is what's cool about financial independence, is that so many of us think, and we hear these crazy numbers, oh, you need $5, $10, $20 million to retire. It's so uncertain. It's so scary, right? Like, it's math. And that's the cool thing. And we can kind of quibble about, is it 4%? Is it 3%? Educated people can argue about that, but it's nice to have a number. So anyway, we just take that $36,000 or your annual expenses, multiply it by 25, and your financial independence number is $900,000. Not 10 million, it's 900,000.
No one's telling you that you cannot earn $10 million. You certainly can, but you should know there should be a base of security there to tell you that once you hit, $900,000, assuming your life stays the same, expenses stay the same, you're always going to have that floor there. Like, you're going to be able to afford and that is it allows you to take more risk. The world opens up to you when the employer needs you more than you need them. The job needs you more than you need them. It takes risk and it turns it into opportunity. It does it long before you reach this number. You'll start noticing you have that power at your disposal even a couple years in, as you realize, oh, wow, if I didn't earn another dollar for the next few months, we'd be good to go. Anyways, I took that number and then I mapped that to this amount that you have. I mean, you have this massive shovel that you've created basically due to the fact that you've kept your cost of living very low up to this point. If you take that 46.25 that we talked about and you were to invest that, and we have whole episodes and our audience is very familiar with that. We can talk about it with you offline if we want, but we invest that into low-cost, broad-based index funds. Basically, the point being here, you don't need to find a guy or a gal, a specialist who can help you beat the market. You just need to keep up with the market. If you can keep up with the market, in your case, for about 11 years, you're going to blow past that number. So at the age of 43, based on what you have tracked right now, you're never going to need to earn another dollar again after that point. 2031, that is your year. And keep in mind, that's predicated. Yeah, we could say, well, life might get more expensive, but you also might make more, as you get better at your craft, as your husband does better and starts to understand, the community that he's offering sales and services in. Like, what are the odds that you never earn more than you do right now if you're actively pursuing more income? The world opens up to you. And in your case, it's entirely predicated on the fact that in the early days, you kept your cost of living really low, giving you the chance to dig your way out of debt and build a financial future for yourself, your husband, and your kids. So huge props to what you and your husband have pulled off here.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, that's not too shabby, right? 11 years, and you theoretically have reached a point of financial independence.
That would be amazing.
All right. Well, in 11 years, give us a call back and let us know. Like, hey,
Done. All thanks to us.
Yeah, totally us. We did it all of it. That was it. Yeah, I'm going on break. So, Kashia, what are your thoughts on that? I mean, you guys have worked really, really hard, and sometimes it's hard to know what the end game is. Like, what does that mean for you? How does that change conversations that you and your husband are having? Does that map out to what you were internally thinking already? Like, where does this fit in your thought process?
Oh, 100%. It totally maps out to what we were thinking, what we were wanting to do. It's just a matter of taking those steps and getting there and figuring out how to do it. Yeah. For me, with this whole getting out of debt, leaning towards financial independence, goals make me more driven to save more, to put more away, and to see it just grow. And then I don't know. It's almost like an addiction. When you see those credit cards just drop off, you're like, oh my gosh, I want to keep doing it. And then that's done. Then you will put some into savings and you're like, I just want to see it grow. And so seeing that in 11 years, we could potentially hit financial independence, it makes me want to just be like, okay, let's just keep doing it. Let's just focus on that. Who needs Netflix? We can do this.
We can do it. $8.99 a month. No, we'll cut off a couple months. Let's do this.
Too expensive.
I do want to point out to people that every $100 a month in recurring expenses that you cut out is $30,000 less that you do not need to account for in your financial independence number. So this one, we talked about Republic Wireless in this call, this $100 decision for you is $30,000 less that you do not need to account for in your financial independence number. And we're using some math to get there, but it maps out. Think about that. When you look at your budget, when you look at these recurring monthly subscriptions, and you're like, well, it's not worth it. Well, how could it possibly make a difference? It makes a difference. You add a few of those together and you need $100 less. So go through the line. I mean, the first step, you already did it. Create the Excel sheet, go through the line items, take action on the small things. The big things will then take care of themselves. Kashia, people are listening to this. They're inspired by your story. They want to follow up and connect with you. What's the best way for them to do that?
You can follow us on Kashia Palmer on Instagram. It's just Kashia, last name Palmer. And we talk a lot about our family, and we're very, very open of how we got where we are. And yeah, ask us anything on there.
Awesome. Thank you so much for joining us on the show today.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Well, to our audience, I don't know about you, but I can promise you, Brad and I found Kashia's story incredibly inspiring. And you remember that day that you heard about financial independence and you looked into it for the first time and you realized that it's not get rich quick, but it is get rich quick-ish. And it works every time because it's based on simple math. That's the power of the story, the power that this is not a scheme. This is a strategy for winning at life. And you can do this. And if you're saying, man, I wish I started 10 years ago. Well, yeah, I hear that. But how much better is it that you're starting today and not 10 years from now? My point being, get started. And if you want our help, the resources that we've put together, just go to choosefi.com/start to get started on your path to financial independence today. Have you subscribed to our podcast yet? Press the subscribe button on the player you're listening to this on. Just lets the provider know you're getting value from the show and you want to be here when we produce additional content. And we'll see you in the next episode.
You've been listening to Choose FI Radio Podcast, where we help middle-class America build wealth, one life hack at a time.